Hello and welcome to the Navigating Neurodiversity podcast. I'm Vivien, registered psychologist, and today I've got Kevin Leong, our guest. So Kevin is a registered psychologist and a parent of neurodivergent children. Kevin has over 20 years of working with neurodivergent adults and children, and I've invited Kevin here today to talk about his area of focus. So one of the areas of work that Kevin specializes in is supporting autistic teens and adults in developing their social pragmatic skills. So this includes things like social interaction, relationship management, problem solving, as well as workplace self-management strategies. So very happy to have Kevin join us today. So I thought to start off, we'll ask Kevin to share with us a bit about your career journey and what got you here today, focusing in on this area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Viv. So it was an interesting journey as I reflected on it, and I thought of it from a perspective of being chameleon, because I think when I started my adult journey, went to university, got a degree, computer science, but then pivoted to finance simply because of an opportunity.
Right.
Then spent 13 years being an investment banker, doing all those things that, traditionally we think is important in measures of success, right? Then I had children, and that's where the humbling moment came. When you realize that when you have children, you don't actually always have the perfect so-called stereotypical lifestyle, but where there are lots of ups and downs, right? And especially with children with needs. And mind you, this was the 1990s. You struggle with choices or even trying to figure out where to get resources to support your kids.
Yeah.
So there came the pivotal moment where I think as a family, we decided I was probably the better parent to pivot away from some of the traditional careers. And so I moved into mental health, going to do my bachelor's and master's again in psychology. And to take that qualification alongside with this experience that I already had accumulated.
Yes.
To try and then bring support to the community.
Yeah. That's amazing because you went from
Thank
computer geek to finance bro.
Yeah, I know,
to
right?
now today mental health.
Yeah.
Wow. A true chameleon.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that, Kevin. So, we kind of serve overlapping but slightly different populations because I work primarily with children, teenagers. You work with the older adolescents maybe and to adults.
Yeah.
So maybe you could share with us about, what you see are the unique challenges that this age group faces. Yeah.
Great question again. I think one of the things that is common between the work we do is that we do a lot of transitioning. And I think we also know from, from studies and science that transition into adolescence and beyond is quite a tumultuous one.
Yeah.
A lot of times, in the younger ages, we focus a lot on skills. But when I work with the older population, the older teens and the adults, the focus not only is on the skills, but also the purpose. If we think about it logically, if we want a child to transition into greater independent functioning, then they've got to have a better grounding of why they should do it or why should they bother, right? So there's a lot of work in the area of things like clarifying and building personal values, personal goals, and of course then a personal strategy for which they then use the skills that we teach them. Yeah. This, however, isn't just me. I mean, it's always done in conjunction with the family because family values are very important too.
Yes.
And so that's still that collaborative relationship that we have between clinician and the clients.
Right. So it sounds like it's really customized in that sense,
hugely.
right? Is there like a program that you use, or it's so customized that
Yeah.
you kind of draw upon the program, but you really have to
Okay,
adapt
so it's eclectic in a sense. Yes, we draw from things like social thinking, of course, for the skills specific, but also broader. How should I say this? Broader counseling and coaching techniques as well. When it comes to helping an individual clarify what is important to them and why they should do. Or use skills that they don't ordinarily do.
Yes. So it sounds a bit more like personal coaching,
It's
kind of
very
clarifying
much.
your
It is
goals
totally,
and
yeah,
things like
it is,
that.
it is.
Right. And then bringing in the skills after that's clear to
Yes,
them.
yes.
Okay, great. So one of the challenges that we often have, which I believe you probably share as well, is the generalization of those skills, right?
Yes.
So some children, we build those skills in
Yeah,
the sessions,
yeah.
and then the question is always, well, how do we get them to apply it outside of sessions? So maybe you can share your thoughts on that. Yeah.
So you're right. It's always easier to teach the session in the clinic or in the office.
Yeah.
And it's always easy when you have no external factors coming in to complicate the situation, right? So I and my team put an emphasis on context. So what we do is we go down to the ground. We go down to cafes, we go down to bars, we go to restaurants. I've even been in what do you call those bouncy gym things?
Bouncy gym.
A trampoline thing. Yeah.
I was thinking about
I even went to the trampoline thing one, which was very painful for me.
Like a trampoline park?
Totally. Yeah. It was, that was an adventure.
Right.
But,
so really understanding the context where they function in.
So we go into the environment, into the community where possible. And we try and practice the skills there, but at the same time, allow for learning moments where new concepts or skills can be talked about and introduced for the client for future work. Right? Yeah.
So your sessions may not take place in the office, but it might be external.
Exactly.
Where you actually apply it with them.
And on top of it, sorry if I jumped in there.
Sure.
I don't go by myself with the client. I typically bring in another young adult, usually an intern or two, to allow for that, I guess, age-appropriate kind of interaction, and topic discussion.
Right. Okay. That's a great idea. Yes. So, Kev, for this age group, especially for the boys, right? I think NS, National Service, is one topic, that we get queried a lot about as well. So, in terms of preparing, I know that there are also things like, the levels of fitness, right? So different options for deployment, possibility of exemptions and things like that. But what are your thoughts about how can we best prepare our boys who are on the spectrum for this milestone?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Great. I think the experience so far with National Service, not just us having done it, but also talking to the autistic adults who are about to embark on that journey, right? One of the most common ones is about being flexible, dealing with difficult situations, dealing with people, obviously, right? Understanding that how military is a different culture and there needs to be there's slightly different rules of engagement. But I think the big one is managing their mental health, right? It's not just the ASD individual or neurodiverse individual that gets stressed out or frustrated or in National Service. The neurotypicals do too.
Yeah.
And so I think the challenge there is really about figuring out how to maintain that mental wellness and not be overwhelmed by it. Right. On a side note, I think what I also see a lot in my clients is that the average Singaporean teenager has a pretty privileged life.
That is true.
And I lose track of how many times I've spoken to parents to talk to them about giving their teenager the chance to learn and practice not just life skills, but self-care skills. Okay. So things like using a washing machine, making up their own bed,
folding their own
folding
clothes.
their own laundry, all these little bits and pieces, as minor as they may be in, daily life. The reality is if the young adult doesn't learn them, sometimes, it's a bit more challenging for them when they actually get in national service.
Yeah, that's right.
I always say to the parents, right, don't disable your child more, by not letting them practice the skills.
Yeah. Could you share with us a little bit more about the mental health piece? Like, what are the skills? Is it like about help seeking? Is it about understanding their own emotions and their triggers?
Yes. Help seeking is a natural thing because self-advocacy is important. But also, there's an element of problem solving, perspective taking, right? Classic one being, for example, not all problems are the same size. And do we need the same reaction to every single one, or can we moderate them, accordingly? So these are skills that you need to practice even before the individual goes to the national service. Right?
That's right.
I think with your client base, you see it too, and I'm sure you guys do it too. It's really about how well even families model and practice this sort of, mental health wellness.
Yes. I think another area that has come up with our clients is also the understanding of sarcasm and communications, which seem to take place a lot in NS setting because of the way that they communicate and commands are said, and my grandma can run faster. That sort of thing, right? To really, I guess, prepare them that communications there are maybe a little bit different from what you're accustomed to.
Very much so. But the skills that we talked about, right, Viv, quite honestly, are not just about national service. The reality is, as the ASD individual transitions into adulthood, these same skills are relevant. These are about eventually life independence. And so the sooner you teach them or train them or learn them, the more prepared you are for adult life.
Yes, absolutely. I was also thinking about like financial literacy. Maybe that's something that's and I'm not sure how much they do in NS. But is there something we can do in that regard? Like coming from a banking background, I thought you're the perfect person.
So that's a good question, but I think we also have to be mindful of where each family is in their life journey, right? Different families have different levels of resources and how they want to choose to allocate them. I think basic principles like how to handle money safely are important, whereas things like investment and how to grow your money, I think probably are things you look maybe a little later on in life, because I think the more basics need to be covered first.
Sure. So I think like simple maybe budgeting, sticking to a budget, needs versus
money
wants,
decisions,
that sort of thing can be covered earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. So Kev, on a more personal note, as a parent of neurodivergent children yourself, do you have any advice or messages? Because your children are grown up, they're in university and they're doing pretty well.
Thank you.
So you've walked the tough journey over the years.
It's been a tough journey. It's been a very humbling journey, but it's also a very it's a journey of growth for ourselves as well, or myself at least. I think for parents, I think what advice I'd give is that don't ever neglect that channel of communication with your child, because without that, it's difficult to impart the wisdom and knowledge that we've accumulated as parents through the years to the emerging adult.
Yes.
So work on that open communication relationship that you have as early as you can. Okay? So that's one. Another one is don't be afraid to let go at some point. most of us are fearful of letting go because we don't want our kids to fail. And that's in many different shapes and forms. But the reality is failure is an opportunity for our child to learn. And for us too, frankly. And for actually many ASD clients that I have, they learn better by failure.
Yeah.
So controlled failure, I think, is important to allow and accept.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so having worked with this population for many years, what are your best hopes or your dreams, for this population
Yes,
of autistic
yes,
teens and adults?
yeah. I do work not just with the low needs population, but I also do some work volunteer on a volunteer basis with the higher support needs individuals in the community. And I think what is consistent through this journey is that I think while the persons with autism get some level of support and training for them to be able to integrate into the community, I think there's a long way still for the community to learn how to accept persons with autism.
Yeah.
I think the amount of support there is out there materially for persons with autism is growing, but I'm not sure I see it, or personally see enough resources and energy being put into adjusting the broader community's attitudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that would really be my hope eventually, just to see less of the term mainstream, but coming back to that whole theme of neurodiversity, right?
Yeah.
Accepting people who are just different and they have different paths.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a really good example could be like some of our clients might, stim. Yeah, they might have certain actions which make them stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
And actually they're not harming anyone or they're not doing anything,
No.
they're just in their own space. They're using that to calm down, to self-regulate and so on. But I guess I have parents who are very concerned, and they would say, could you try to reduce the stimming and things like that? And I can understand where they're coming from because it's really exactly what you said. They're not doing anything bad or harmful, but it's the environment and the perceptions of others that the parents, I think, are worried about. Like, would they get picked on? Because in a school setting, I'm sure the other students would then look at, hey, what's wrong with this guy, and it really saddens me sometimes to hear, I guess, things like autism being used as a slur in school, right? They scold each other, totally stop being autistic and things like that. And I think that really hurts the population that we work with, because especially while we're trying to, educate them and teach them to accept and love themselves, but then they go out in the environment and that's the kind of treatment that they get.
And on that note, right, maybe another piece of parental advice. Perhaps it's time to review your own values, beliefs, and perhaps adjust some of the ego at some of these moments. Because I guess the child's behavior isn't necessarily a reflection of what kind of parent you are.
Yeah.
Acceptance, right?
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think, because we work with parents and so many parents, ask questions like, did I do something wrong? Have I not parented the right way? Did I make a mistake? Maybe I shouldn't have done this when my child was young.
Yeah.
And I think, for me personally, I always say, honestly, yes, parenting is important, but a lot of times, exactly what you said, like the way that our child turned out may not be a function of your parenting. You might have, you might have been a good enough parent. You might have done everything right.
That's right.
And yet things happen, right? Yeah, your child might be neurodivergent or might have other needs and so on. And that's not on you as a parent. So I really, that really resonated with me. Thanks, Kevin. Thank
thank
you
you.
so much for your time
Thank you for having
and
me.
sharing the experience and so on. So we hope that that conversation has been helpful for you as well. And if you've got any further questions for Kevin, please put it down in the caption below. I also forgot to mention earlier that I will put Kevin's website down in the caption below as well. And his company is called Cornerstone.
It is.
Right? Yes. Thanks again, Kev.
Thanks, Vivien.
All right. Goodbye. Thanks for
See ya.
watching.
Bye.
Bye.
No, lost my thought. Okay, hang on.
Just pause.
Yeah.